Greetings everyone and welcome into the PCB webinar. My name is Gezim Zeneli and I am the Portfolio Marketing Manager for IT Security at PCB. Today we will discuss about the webinar topic, making business continuity implementation in ISO 27001 easier with ISO 22301. The webinar will be presented by Mr. Dejan Kosutic, who is the main ISO 27001 expert on Advisera. He has extensive working experience both as a tutor and a consultant. He is an approved tutor for ISMS Lead Auditor courses and delivers various ISO 27001 in-person courses throughout Europe as well as online courses via webinars. I hope this webinar will give you facts and relevant information on how to best adjust the IA17 control on the business continuity. If you have any question, you can write them at any time in question box in right-hand control panel, or you can use the option to raise your hand and you will be linked directly to Mr. Kosutic. Please, Dejan, you may proceed with the presentation.
Thanks, Gezim, and hello everyone, and thank you for attending this webinar where I'll speak about how to actually combine information security and business continuity standards. I'm not sure if you already read my articles on my ISO 27001 blog. I do quite a lot of work with the clients that implement both of these standards. So today I'm going to share with you my thoughts about how to implement both of these standards at the same time and actually get some benefits, I would say, out of this combination. Okay, so very often I see companies that are struggling with this section A17 from ISO 27001. This section A17 from NXA is about business continuity management, and basically these companies are struggling because they don't know how to implement this section, and this is actually where they can use ISO 22301, the business continuity standard, as a solution to this problem. So basically this webinar today is meant for companies or for people that need to implement this A17 section from ISO 27001, and this webinar today is really, I would say, meant for beginners in this field. So I'll explain some basic stuff on how to start this whole thing, this combination of standards, and also why you should do it and how to do it. So it's really meant for beginners. I'm not going to go into some very deep details. Okay, so as I mentioned before, what is important to know is that ISO 22301 is the business continuity standard, international standard for business continuity, and it is really the best methodology if you want to implement business continuity in your company. And I'll show you in the webinar today how to combine it with ISO 27001. My main point today is that these two standards are highly compatible. Many people actually that are new to these areas consider information security and business continuity are completely separate topics. And not only this, sometimes I see companies that are having completely separate information security and business continuity departments. I see this sometimes in, let's say, bigger banks. But this is, I would say, a completely wrong approach. So these two areas, I would say, information security and business continuity, are very, very compatible, and it really makes sense to implement them together in companies of any size. And this is exactly what I'll show you today during this webinar. So regarding the agenda, first I'll show you why to implement ISO 22301 and ISO 27001 together, and also show you the similarities between ISO 27001 and ISO 22301. Then I'll show you some overlapping areas between these two standards, and I'll also touch on the subject of the implementation. What are the implementation issues? What are the implementation roles? Let's say the same roles that can be used for both of these standards, and finally I'll speak a little bit about the certification. Okay, now the first question is really why would you use ISO 22301 for ISO 27001? So as I mentioned already, there is this Annex A17 in ISO 27001 that requires you to implement business continuity. However, this part of ISO 27001 is not really descriptive. It doesn't tell you how to do it. There are only a couple of controls that you need to implement, but it's not really clear how to do this. ISO 22301 is, on the other hand, international standard for business continuity, and it describes in detail how to, let's say, write the business continuity policy, or how to do the business impact analysis, how to develop the business continuity strategy, what are the parts of business continuity plans, and so on. So it can be really very, very useful for complying with A17 in ISO 27001. Okay, so basically this is generally why it is useful to consider these two standards together. Now let's go through the similarities of these two standards. So first of all, there is this document and records control, or document to the record management. So basically the requirements of ISO 27001 and ISO 22301 are the same when it comes to document and record control. So what does this mean? This means that if you want to implement both ISO 27001 and ISO 22301, you don't have to write this procedure for document and record control separately for 27001 and separately for 22301. All you have to do is write one single procedure for document and record management or document and record control that will cover both of these standards, or both of these systems, both information security management system and in business continuity management system. Second thing is human resources management. So again, similar thing. The requirements are the same in both of these standards, which means you don't need, let's say, a separate system for managing human resources. You don't need a separate, let's say, human resources manager, of course. You don't need a separate procedure if you want to write some document for human resources management. Again, you use the same system. Basically, the system is that you have to recognize what are the competencies that are needed for your human resources, and then you have to, let's say, fill the gap. If the competencies, let's say, are required and that you don't have them within your workforce, then you have to send your people for training. So the system is basically the same. Of course, the trainings might be different, but again, on how you do this is basically the same. Similar thing with internal audit. So the idea here is that requirements again are the same between the standards, and you can use actually the same internal audit procedure, but not only this, you can use the same internal auditor to do the audit against both information security and business continuity. So you're basically cutting down the costs, although you have two standards, two systems. Similar thing with management review, similar thing with corrective actions, similar thing with objectives and measurement. Of course, again, the objectives could be a little bit different for business continuity as opposed to information security, but still it is very, very much the same. Okay, I have a question from Sebastian. So he's asking, why not take the Annex SL to it as well as for a wider coverage? Well, Annex SL is, I would say, a concept, or let's say this is the standard on how ISO builds all the other management standards, and it basically aligns all the main clauses of each standard. So I mean, we could go according to this Annex SL, as you were saying, but the point is that there are also some bigger differences. So for instance, clause 8 in each of these ISO standards is very different, so you cannot really draw any parallels here. So my point is that in this slide here I focused only on those, let's say, items, those elements, which are very, very much the same, if not completely the same. So this is my idea of this slide. Okay, now let's see some overlapping areas that are, let's say, similar but not completely the same. One of those is risk assessment. So the risk assessment is actually required in both of these standards, and the thing is that ISO 27001 describes risk assessment much more precisely. So there is this basically the requirements on setting up the methodology, and then identifying the risks, and then analyzing the risks, and so on. ISO 22301 business continuity also requires the performing of a risk assessment, but it's not as precise as ISO 27001. So what I would actually suggest is that you do not perform two separate risk assessments, one for risk assessment, one for business continuity, and the other one for information security. You could actually perform only one risk assessment that covers both information security and business continuity. And this is perfectly doable, and this is also accepted by the certification auditors, and you can actually use the methodology from ISO 27001, since 27001 is here much more precise. And actually I'll send you a link on how this can be done. So let me just see. I have an article which I've written on this topic. So here it is. I'll send you now the link through this chat window. So here is the article. It's called Can ISO 27001 Risk Assessment be used for ISO 22301? Okay, the other overlapping area is incident management. So basically, incident management is again something that is required in both ISO 27001 and ISO 22301. Whereas this time, ISO 22301 is much more precise on what it requires with regards to incident management, how to respond to incidents, how to communicate, and so on. So in this case, it would be better actually to take the requirements in ISO 22301 as, let's say, leading requirements, and use the ISO 22301 for the implementation of incident management. So again, as you can see, there are some overlapping areas where, let's say, one or the other standard is much more precise, and of course you should take the requirements which are more, let's say, in-depth when it comes to these two areas. Okay, there is another question from Mohammed. We need to implement A17 for sure, but why going to the full ISO 22301 to achieve this? Is this really needed? The answer actually is no, but I'll show you this actually in a couple of slides. So you don't have to implement ISO 22301 just to go for A17, but I think it could be a good idea. And I will show you this in a couple of slides why I think that you can do something like this. Okay, now let's do a little bit on implementation issues and implementation roles. So first of all, I think that you should actually treat business continuity management as a sub-project of your ISO 27001 project. So basically what you should do is really start implementing ISO 27001 as you normally would, but when your project comes to the, let's say, to a point in time where you have to start implementing business continuity or A17 section from Annex A, then actually you can start, let's say, a smaller sub-project which would focus only on ISO 22301, or better to say on business continuity elements from ISO 22301. So this is one thing. The other thing is that you shouldn't implement really the whole ISO 22301, because you don't need to. You only need to take from ISO 22301 what's the, let's say, most useful for ISO 27001. And there are basically, I would say, 5 core business continuity elements that you should really take from ISO 22301. And this is the business continuity policy, then business impact analysis, then business continuity strategy, business continuity planning, which includes also the recovery plans and incident response plans, and finally exercising and testing. So these are the 5 core, what I call core business continuity elements that you should actually take from ISO 22301 and then implement as part of this, let's say, sub-project in ISO 27001. Now the question is, why wouldn't you take anything else from ISO 22301? The answer is actually because you already implemented through ISO 27001. Because what is there left in 22301 once you implement these 5 elements? There is this document control, there is the internal audit, there is the management review, there is the, let's say, corrective actions, these kind of things. And you already implemented all of those things because you did it already in ISO 27001. Okay, now regarding the roles, I have actually a poll here that I would like to show you. So I'll just launch a poll now. Okay, and here you have on your screen, you have this short poll, so could you please take a second to answer this one? And the poll question is, how should Chief Information Security Officer participate in the business continuity project? So should this person lead the business continuity project, or should this CISO be a member of the business continuity project team, or should CISO be occasionally consulted about the project, or should he not participate at all? So what do you think? What is your impression on how this should be done? You can actually select only one of the options here, and I'll wait a couple of seconds for you to answer. Okay, a couple of seconds more. Okay, thank you. I'll close the poll now and show you the results. Okay, as you can see, majority of you think that CISO should be a member of the business continuity project team, and 20% of you think that this person should lead business continuity project. Well, basically, what I think is that this really depends on the size of the company. Now, the bigger the company, it is more likely that you will have, let's say, someone who is in charge of business continuity, let's say business continuity manager, who will lead this let's say, sub-project for business continuity. And of course, in this case, CISO needs to be a part of this project team. Now, if you are a smaller company or even mid-sized company, it is not realistic to expect to have two persons, I mean, that you have both CISO and then also the business continuity manager, two persons in parallel. So for a company of, let's say, 10 or 15 employees, this is certainly impossible. Even for companies of, let's say, 100 or 200 or 500 employees, it's rarely to find, the situation where the company can afford itself to have two separate persons. So they will have typically one person who will manage both security and business continuity. And in these cases, this person will, of course, also lead this business continuity sub-project. Okay. Good. So let's go back to my slide. Okay. So as I mentioned, this business continuity coordinator could be a separate person, or it can be actually the same person who was leading the ISO 27001 implementation. Now, regarding project team, the best thing actually would be if the members of the project team are the same members as you had for ISO 27001. And of course, in this project team, you shouldn't have only IT people, because by definition, information security and especially business continuity is not only an IT project. So if you have, let's say, 5 project team members, you could have perhaps one from your IT department, but the others should be really from your business part of your company. Because of course the idea of both information security and business continuity is to preserve not only the IT part of your organization. The point of these two standards is to preserve your core operations, because the idea is not to preserve only the computers and information systems, because if you don't focus also on the business side of your company, then you won't have anyone to really work with these information systems, with this data. Okay, and finally, the point about top management is that you should have definitely the sponsor of the project. And when speaking about ISO 27001, you should have a sponsor who understands, let's say, the need for information security and the benefits of ISO 27001 implementation. And it would be actually the best to have the same sponsor for this, let's say, sub-project when it comes to ISO 22231, I mean business continuity. because again the issues and the benefits are very much the same. So it's the best to have, let's say, the same top executive who is supporting your project. Okay, now regarding the implementation and certification, what is important to understand is that if you go with this approach that I mentioned, that you implement implement actually ISO 27001 normally, and then start implementing ISO 22301 only partially through these 5 core business continuity elements, then actually it turns out that you will implement both of these standards fully, but that this additional effort for ISO 22301 will be maybe 10% of the whole effort. And this is actually the answer to the question that I received a couple of minutes earlier. You do not need to implement ISO 22301 if you want to comply with A17 from ISO 27001. But first of all, I think it's a good methodology, and second, I think that there is this 10% of extra effort needed, and actually you get 2 standards. You almost get 2 for 1, if I can use this marketing talk. You get 2 standards. And especially if your company is, I would say, in some kind of competitive business, and if these certificates are something that are of high value to your, let's say, sales team or marketing team, then you can, get this additional certificate, ISO 22301, for, let's say, rather low investment, and you can use it quite good in your marketing or sales efforts. So you really have to think it through. If this is something that is really useful for you, or if this is something that is applicable for you, and in this way you can really, if this is something that is important, then you can really use it and have the benefit of such combined implementation. Similar thing is actually with the certification. So, of course, if you go only for certification against ISO 27001, then basically this 2231 implementation is not something that is required. But you can actually apply for certification also against ISO 22301. And in this case, you actually won't pay double the price for this certification, because you can do the so-called integrated audit. So, for instance, let's say that you would pay normally that the certification auditor would take, let's say, 7 man days for ISO 27001, and then separately, if you go for a separate certification, 7 man days for ISO 22301. Now, if you go for this integrated audit, you won't have to pay 7 plus 7, so 14 man days for the certification auditor. You would have to pay, let's say, only 10 man days, because the certification auditor, of course, knows that these 2 standards are very highly compatible and that many things are really overlapping. So he won't need, double the time to check these 2 systems in your company. You will need less time. So again, you can get also 2 certificates with, let's say, some additional fee, but again, not double fee for the certification. So basically, this is how it works between these 2 standards. Okay, I have a question from Thomas. For what kind of a company would it make marketing sense to get ISO 22301 certification? Okay, so the main idea, of course, of ISO 22301 is to prove to your, let's say, clients or stakeholders or whoever that you can provide a continuous service without interruptions, and so on. So I would say that this is interesting, especially for companies who have very strict SLAs, service level agreements. So this could be any kind of internet providers or let's say cloud providers, especially in providing some services that are really very time sensitive. Also, if you're providing any kind of direct service to your, let's say, direct clients, if you are, let's say, I don't know, some kind of call center, or if you're some kind of service center for your IT service center for your clients, this could also be a very, very good, kind of proof that you can really provide this kind of service. So anytime where this continuous service is needed and where the SLAs, I mean the response time prescribed in the SLAs where it is short, I would say that this is a good way to differentiate your company as opposed to your competitors. Okay, good. Now let's go on to the conclusions, and then I'll answer any of your remaining questions. I would say that ISO 22301 really provides the best methodology for the implementation of Section A17, the business continuity section of ISO 27001, and that I mean, you can get one extra certificate with only 10% of the effort. So this is something that that could be some kind of, let's say, good business decision for your company. Okay, so basically this is it, and of course you have to judge whether this is something that is interesting concept for you or for your, let's say, marketing team and for your sales team, and then you can go and explain this case to your top management. Okay, so basically this is it. So while we wait for your any potential questions, Gezim, maybe you can present the training courses that you have.
Okay, thank you, Dan, for this highly informative presentation. We want to inform you that PCB provides training and certification services for ISO 27001, Lead Implementer or Lead Auditor, ISO 27032 Cybersecurity Lead Manager, Lead Penetration Testing, etc. This training provides you with guidelines on how to ensure security in your organization's application and the process connected to them. A PCB certificate will demonstrate your dedication in implementing and managing these processes and the frameworks, and most importantly, you will be recognized worldwide. To have more information on this, you can visit our website pcb.com on the training section.
Okay, great. We actually have one question that came in from Abdelhamek, and the question is: most bank companies here in Morocco go for BCMS ISO 22301. Isn't it good to focus more on data integrity systems? Aren't there any ISO standards handling integrity management systems? So as far as I know, there are no standards that will be focused on integrity management systems. Although what you have to know is that ISO 27001 focuses on information security, and by definition, information security is consists of three concepts. One is the confidentiality, the other one is availability, and the third one is integrity. So basically, when you implement ISO 27001 and when you implement the information security management system, then integrity is one of the essential parts, or let's say essential objectives that you need to achieve. So you could say that if your focus is data integrity, then definitely ISO 27001 is the right standard for you. Okay, another question from Abrao. Can we have this slide presentation at the end of this session? So I think, Gezim, the attendants will receive this presentation, I guess.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, very good. Okay, I think this is basically it regarding the questions. So let me see. Thank you very much for attending this webinar, and Gezim, if you have a couple of words for the end.
Yes, so thank you again, Dejan, for this informative presentation, and also want to thank all the attendees for joining us live today. I suggest you take time and see our future webinars that we will be hosting. Next Wednesday we will host a webinar topic which is called Designing Smart Cities with an Agile PAS 181 framework. You can also take time and visit our future webinars, our website, pcb.com, on the webinar section, and to register for the webinars. Thank you once again, and hope to meet you soon on our webinars.